world could not love by our own powers. What is joy? Is it just a dream? Or does joy laugh in every stream? Are the clouds mindless after all? Or is joy all nature's theme? God is dead, so men say. Can't they see all life's his play? Not a church binds him as its own, not a creed makes him fully known. Foolish we, if we limit him, every atom is his throne. What is love? Is it only ours? Or does love whisper in the flowers? Surely we, children of this world, could not love by our own powers. What is love? What is love? Is it love we touch in the flowers? And this is called God's Call Within. Of laughter, hints of joy, sweet songs of sadness, of quenchless yearning for the light, for my love, your true home. Long your heart has played the dancer, long you've toyed with merest shadows of the treasures left behind you, deep in your soul. Long you've plumbed the dark for answers, long you've begged from beggars' empty hands, gifts of life they too were seeking, gifts none could share. Friend, how long will you wander? Friend, as long as you seek your home in a land where all are strangers, love locks her door. Leave to the weak his craven life, to the coward leave his dreaming. Oh, my saint, wake up, reclaim the light, seek the truth behind all seeming. Leave to the weak his craven life, to the coward leave his dreaming. Oh, my saint, wake up, reclaim the light, seek the truth behind all seeming. Turn, turn, turn within, in silence of soul, in cave of love, find my abode. Whispering within your soul, hints of laughter, hints of joy, sweet songs of sadness, of quenchless yearning for the light, for my love, your true home.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yes, well done. Thank you. My. During the time that a great master is present on the earth, he has, or she, but he has tremendous amount of magnetic power. When Yogananda was living in the ashram in Los Angeles that he founded, he resisted any efforts to get things organized. And this being a Western country, people thought that what he really ought to do was get things systematic and, chain of command and line of authority. And he sabotaged every effort that they made, apparently, to run things in some kind of an orderly manner, because he wanted to have a direct connection with everyone. He wasn't looking for efficiency on any external level. He just wanted to be able to draw out of his disciples the best that was in them, and that without any interference of organizational or systems of any kind. But he also said to the disciples there that after he was gone, they wouldn't necessarily be able to hold it the way he was able to hold it, because people's love for him gave them the power, and his grace to them gave them a kind of power that would be others couldn't sustain. And I know in a certain context, Swami Kriyananda said, only a few people can make all their decisions intuitively. He said most people at least need a few rules. And he said it's not fair even to the people who are able to do it intuitively to not make some rules, because then the intuitive people have to make all the decisions because nobody else can. So he was just talking about everybody operates at a different level. And part of also, Swami Kriyananda described Yogananda, he said, as a meteor streaking across the sky, just sort of setting this wave of power that it was the job of the disciples to bring down into a more practical manifestation. Although Yogananda did more than most masters do in terms of writing books and music and even setting up an organization to an extent. But when it comes time for a master to leave this world, he often has to clean house a little bit. It's like he has to leave the work strong enough so that lesser leaders can still manage to make it work. So in Yogananda's life, there was a time where, as Swami Kriyananda described it, he was almost driving people away. He was making it harder for people to stay. And it's not that the disciples necessarily left the path or left their discipleship, but they just moved away from where the ashram life was because the master was about to leave. In the life of Jesus, we also see that same story, or let me phrase it differently. Hearing about Swami talking about Yogananda's life gave me a much deeper understanding of what was happening with Jesus at the end of his life, which was also much more important because as soon as Jesus left, the popular opinion began to turn against the followers of Christ. And they ended up facing a great deal of persecution, and almost all the initial disciples were martyred in some way or another, except St. John. So Jesus started making it harder for people to follow him. And famously, he said, eat my body and drink my blood. People just came to an ordinary satsang like this one, and suddenly the master is saying, eat my body and drink my blood. And he wasn't explaining it. He wasn't saying, well, in time, you see, there will be a church, and we'll have the communion cup, and we'll have the wafer and all of that. He didn't say any of that. He just said, eat my body and drink my blood. And in the Bible, marvelously, it says, the disciples said one to another, this is a hard teaching. And then it said, and from that time many walked with him no more. Now, the Bible is the New Testament is very truncated. The Old Testament also. You just get the highlights. You don't get the whole picture. Having spent time as I did with Swami Kriyananda and heard him talk about being with Yogananda, the stories that I read in the Bible about Jesus and his disciples are not obscure to me. I can see it from the human perspective. At the Last Supper, Jesus was making hints about things that were happening, and the disciples asked John, whom, when John writes in his own gospel, he refers to himself as the one whom Jesus loved, which I'll talk about in just a moment, but that's so beautiful. So the other disciples said to John, why don't you ask him what he's talking about? And you can just see it in a human way that John could get away with asking questions that the others couldn't get away with. And they were too nervous, so they asked John to do it. It's a very human story, because these were real people. So after many walked with him no more because of the eating of the body and the drinking of the blood, which was a little hard to do, Jesus turned to Peter and he said, will you also leave me? And there's no context to that. Had Peter's best friend just left? Did Peter have a wife? Had Peter's wife just left? Was Peter not showing up as regularly as he had shown up? What prompted Jesus to say that? We have no idea. But he said, Peter, will you also leave me? And we've glorified these characters. In the Catholic Church, it says that Peter was the first pope and everything was passed down through him and all of that. But Peter was also a disciple. But his answer was so magnificent, because he didn't say, well, it's not a problem for me, Lord, because I understand the symbolism of what you're saying. He didn't say any of that. He said, where would I go? Just where would I go? And if you really go deep into that answer, you realize how many steps there had to be before Peter could just answer like that. Because one may assume that Peter was just as confused as everyone else and had no idea what Jesus was saying. But his relationship to Jesus was no longer separate from his very existence. His discipleship wasn't something that he was just wearing because it was convenient. It had become his entire nature. There's no way that I could possibly separate from you. And, some in this room have a sense of discipleship to a particular master, but we're all disciples of truth. We're here because what we're really trying to do is to open ourselves to that power of truth. When I was at a certain point in my earlier spiritual life, Swami Kriyananda never flattered us. He never tried to make us feel better by just lavishing praise upon us. He was very supportive. He was very truthful. He was loving in his way. He wasn't austere, but he was always exact. So you could always trust exactly what he said, because he said exactly what he meant. But on this one occasion, there was a group of us, 5 or 6 people, and most of us had a public role in some way or another. And I don't know why exactly, but Swami started saying complimentary things, just sort of to everyone in the group. You're doing very well with this. I really appreciate that, so on like that. He wasn't noticing me, and I wanted to be noticed. And whether I actually waved my arm so he would know I was there, at least inwardly, I was doing that. So sort of at the end of the line, he looked at me and he said, Asha, you're very sincere. There's an expression in English, which you all know, damning with faint praise. And that was my feeling, was that there was just nothing he could say about me except that I was sincere. which crushed me. And so for the next 3 or 4 days, I'm just wandering around feeling so defeated. And finally, not finally, but he's seeing this. He said, what is wrong with you? I said, sir, you said this to this one and that to that one, and all you could say about me was that I was sincere. And he looked absolutely shocked. He said, Asha, sincerity is everything. And it's taken me a long time to really understand what he meant. But I had a very odd and interesting experience. I was traveling to India by myself. All the times prior to that, I'd gone in a group, actually as the leader of a group, but I was taking a trip by myself. I took Asiana Airlines, which left you in South Korea for 3 or 4 hours in between. So I'm in South Korea, country I'd never been in before. And I'm just in the airport, but I'm completely alone, thousands of miles from anyone, all by myself. This was before cell phones or any capacity like that. And all of a sudden, this sort of mindset gets started because Paramhansa Yogananda predicted that there would be very turbulent times. So I imagine that maybe the big nuclear war is going to start while I'm in Southeast Asia. Everything is going to break down. South Korea, everything's going to break down. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life in South Korea. I'm never going to be able to get out. And I don't speak Korean. And I know nothing about the culture or anything like that. So my fantasy, I'm really into this by now. I figure that immigrants who come to a country, even if they're educated, who don't speak the language, they become hotel maids. So I'll become a hotel maid. There was a logical disconnect there because if it was the end of the world, the hotels are not going to be very busy because nobody's been coming and going. But I missed that piece of it. So in my mind, I'm in the hotel and I'm cleaning the rooms and I'm gradually learning the Korean language and getting comfortable with the whole thing. Welcome to my brain, okay? So I'm doing this whole thing in my layover in South Korea. And then I thought, when I really learned the language and got settled, I'd open an Ananda meditation center in South Korea, and that's what I do. But what's so interesting to me is that there was no willful decision in any of that. That was really then, that's sincerity. This is not something that I'm putting on. If you leave me alone in a room, alone in a country, I'm going to be exactly the same person. Because this is translated from something I try to do to just being simply who I am. That's all. And that's what we're really trying to do on the spiritual path. It isn't just a question of willpower. It's a question of what is true. And even much more deeply, who am I? And why am I like this? When I was 19, the first woman friend that I had who had a baby, and I'd always been around children, and my jobs were with children, so I was comfortable with children, but this is the first close friend who was herself a mother. And her baby was just at, just beginning to talk and able to walk and able to just get in endless trouble constantly, that stage, which may last until you're 40, depends on who you are, but just getting into mischief. And so she and I had been used to just sitting together and talking. So she comes over with her baby son, who's now walking. And before, when he was just, the lump in the basket, it was a little easier. But now he's in the house, and the entire time we're talking, he's doing stuff, and she's constantly having to deal with it, just constantly. Even though I understand motherhood very well, it was just overwhelming to me. And I finally said, how can you stand it? Just, that you're so completely you're eaten alive by this baby. How can you stand it? She looked at me like this and says, oh. She said, you look and you see that there are two of us. I look at it and there's just one. This is not something I'm doing. This is who I am. This is my child. I am the mother. It is one reality. And because when you're doing it because you love, you can't not do it. When you have a baby, you fall in love with someone, if you're enamored of the book you're writing or the song you're singing, you can't not do it. It's just like all of your energy is just drawn right into that. And that's that's what it is to be a devotee. First we do it because we're supposed to. And then we do it because where would I go? There's a story told about Anandamoyi Ma, just a little incident. Anandamoyi Ma, the joy-permeated mother. She died in 1982. She was a great saint in India, a very great saint. And apparently once she was giving satsang, and this fly kept landing on her head. And the devotees would flick it off like that. And finally, they were so frustrated they were going to take its life. Not necessarily against Ma's head, but they were going to get rid of it. And she stopped them. She said, "This is a saint who wanted to be close to this body." So a saint incarnated as a fly because it could just then sit on Ma's head. And I believe the life of a fly is very short. And it would just be in a fly body for a while. So it could be, Ma never spoke of herself. She said, "This body," meaning herself. Leave it be, like that. I don't think this was a saint, but I was with Swami in a restaurant I think in Spain, and it was the off season, and there weren't many people there, and the American dinner hour was much earlier than the Spanish, so we were the only ones in the restaurant. And there was one fly in the restaurant, and the fly kept buzzing around Swami's head, landed on his face, landed on his head like that, and I kept brushing it aside. And then it stopped on the table next to it, and Swami just leaned over like this, and he said, "Please leave us alone." And the thing got up, and it sat on his shoulder for a little bit, and then it flew away, and we didn't see it again. Who knows? Now, while I'm telling weird animal stories, let me tell you a really weird animal story. Some of you, many of you know of Ramana Maharshi. He was a great austere yogi, southern India, born in 1879. He lived till 1950, so he was a contemporary, comparatively speaking, and well known. At the age of 16, he just walked out of his house, and he never went back. And he went to the mountain, Arunachala, which in itself is considered a deity. It's not merely considered a holy mountain. It's considered an incarnation of Shiva, if I have that correct. So the mountain itself is on the altar. And for a long time, first he lived in a cave, sort of halfway up the mountain. Then he walked down the mountain and made an ashram. And it's a magnificent place to visit. Well, when he was a young yogi, a young man as a yogi, he was never young, he was always ageless, in that cave, apparently a very, I was going to say peasant woman, but some simple villager took it upon herself to take care of him, and she served him very lovingly all through his lifetime there. Now let me just go to the animal part of this. I had heard this story many times before, that there is a Mahasamadhi Mandir, a temple to a God-realized person. That's what a Mahasamadhi Mandir is. And in his ashram, there is a Mahasamadhi Mandir to Lakshmi the cow. And it's there because this cow was liberated. So you just kind of go like this and think, well, the master has the capability to do anything, so what can I say? And I've known about this for years. I went to the ashram, there it was. In fact, there's also a Mahasamadhi Mandir to a crow, but I don't know as much about the crow. But apparently the story behind the cow is that peasant woman, that simple woman who was taking care of him, also had a family and children to take care of and all these other things. And it is believed that after she died, and then she died before he did, she reincarnated as a cow. And she reincarnated as a cow. And this is, I think, what Ramana Maharshi himself said, because she only wanted to be close to the Guru. She didn't want to have to raise children. She didn't want to have to work. A cow can just give birth and poof, they're gone, And so that cow had privileges with the Guru that no human had. When the meditation hall would open, the cow would come in, the cow would sit right next to Ramana Maharshi, and he would put his arm around her, stroke her the whole time, like that. And she just had every privilege that you could have that most people didn't get. And you think, what an extraordinary heart she had. I mean, how how the only thing that mattered to her, this was her guru, she wanted to be close to him. Like, what else do we want? Now, not all of us, most of us, do not have the opportunity to be next to the guru, to serve him tea, to wash his clothes or anything like that. And none of those things are really being close. What's really being close is being an open window for the vibration to come through. Padre Pio, who was a Catholic priest in Italy, and he was particularly devoted apparently to the baby Jesus. And Padre Pio had this experience one Christmas morning. He has the baby Jesus in his hands. And he just came walking down the stairs, and one of his disciples could see the baby Jesus and remarked about it. And Padre Pio just said, "Oh, you see him too." Just like that. "Oh, you see him. How, isn't that interesting?" There's so much that's possible, and we just hold ourselves so small, and we just give out a little bit and run 100 different preferences in our minds all the time, that we have to have this and we have to have that, and we think that this keeps us away and that keeps us away. Absolutely nothing keeps us from having a divine romance, except our own unwillingness to love. And loving is something we have to practice all the time. You can't just sort of do it all of a sudden. It has to be the way we live in this world. I mean, would we be willing to incarnate as a cow, or perhaps as that cat? Just to be able to be in this ashram all the time. This cat is so, I don't know what to think, but there he is. Every time he's right in the front row. And he sits more still than most of the devotees. Yes, Tamoguna looks like samadhi sometime, but there you have it. But what are we doing on this planet? Why are we here? And what are we looking for? Where would we go? Swami Kriyananda wrote to a friend toward the end of his life, and he just said quite simply, and Swami was enormously, prodigiously creative, and like Vishnu Devananda. These powerful disciples come and they make a lot happen. And from the human point of view, we measure their greatness in those terms. But from their own point of view, it's never like that. What were you doing? I was serving my guru. And everything that we're doing, serving our guru, we're always acting on behalf of the divine. That's us, hands and feet and hearts. We're acting on behalf of the divine in this world. And we can do it out of willpower, but it's so much sweeter to just do it out of love, isn't it? And just everything, the smallest thing. As Mother Teresa of Calcutta would say, we do small things with great love. And it's the great love. There's one of those wonderful death and return stories about Dr. George Ritchie, I believe. And he died when he was 21 of the Spanish flu at the end of World War II. And he was a devoted Christian, a man from the South who had that wonderful Southern accent way of speaking. And when he died, Jesus met him, because that was his understanding of how God would present. So he was with Jesus. He called him the Savior. The Savior came to see him. And he said he was in a 360-degree movie. They say this, you get this simultaneous movie of everything from when you come out of the womb, all happening at the same time. And Jesus said to him, "How much have you loved?" And the question was being answered all around, and the answer was not much, because he had been a very selfish young man. And he was very embarrassed by what was going on, and the only good thing he could see in 21 years of life was that he'd become an Eagle Scout. And so he tells the story, he actually tried to block Jesus's view of a lot of the movie. like made his body, whatever his body was, bigger and pointed over here to this, hoping that he could trick Jesus into seeing that. And he says, Jesus saw right through it, knew exactly what he was doing. And then Richie says, the Savior was amused, is what he said. It's just like, who do you think you're kidding? You think I can't see your heart? But he also felt like Jesus didn't care. He just wanted what was best. How much have you loved? Think about that. I mean, I often measure my life against my life review. And, every so often I figure that I actually use the phrase, something really good happens, and I say, I could die on that. If I carried nothing else over to the other side, I could carry that, and I wouldn't be too embarrassed. But it's a very real way to measure your life. If you're standing in front of whatever archangel or master you imagine you're standing in front of, and they ask you, how much have you loved? What will we be able to answer? Who have I really been? Because we think, how much money have I made? How much this have I done? How much respect have I gotten? But that's just not how it's really measured. And because perfect love casts out all fear, and casting out all fear is what God realization is. We think that we're small. We think that we're helpless. We think that we're vulnerable. We think we're going to be hurt all the time because we do not know how much we are loved. And once we really know that, and then even if the Master himself, like Jesus says to Peter, are you going to leave me too? Where could I go? Where could I possibly be where you wouldn't be there? And why? Why would I walk away? We were talking about two physical bodies, but that's the same within our own hearts all the time. Every time we choose sorrow. Every time we choose unkindness. Every time we allow ourselves to become fearful. God, Jesus has asked us, will you also leave me? We are leaving our true nature. Let's not do that. Let's just make a resolution that in all circumstances, at all times, I will trust and I will love and I will be absolutely sincere. I will not be pretending. I was starting to say Swami Kriyananda at the end of his life, he wrote to a friend. He was just saying, as Swami said to me just in the last year or so, he said, I wish I could be with Master, he said, now, knowing what I know. Because Swami was with his guru in the body from the age of 22 to 26, and then Yogananda died. And Swami was just starting on his spiritual life, and Master was going to take him to India, and Swami was going to teach for Master in India. All these things were going to happen, but instead Master's heart stopped, and that was the end of it. And then, so Swami said to me, I just wish I could be with Master now, knowing what I know now. He said, because I was so young, I just didn't know how to be with him. But I said back, what is obvious? Isn't that something we could just always say? Wouldn't it be true that as our hearts expand, we would think, I could be so much better now than I was then? And, he was being nostalgic. He wasn't really being sad. And I think he was also saying it for my benefit, because I look back and I think, oh, if only I could go back and not be such a nitwit, so many different times. But of course, that's the way it always is. But if we're absolutely sincere, if we're just, this is who I am, I'm not putting this on. And if that isn't how you feel, strive to make it so. Strive to ask yourself over and over again, what is more important than my spiritual life? And I'm not saying that you cast aside your responsibilities, because that's the karma that's given to you, but that you do it all in the company of the Master, in the company of the light. And the criteria, the pole star for everything is how much can I love? And that doesn't mean that we're, as I mentioned, it's To be spiritual doesn't mean you're always nice, because your loyalty is not toward whether everybody likes you or not. Your loyalty is to what is true. What is the highest truth? What is the highest principle? And that's our practice. What do we love? I love the truth. I love the light. I love the opportunity to serve. And if I see Jesus or whomever I see and he asks me how much I love, and this is again what Swami wrote, he said, I look forward to the day when I see Master again on the other side in his form, whatever it might be. And he said, and Master will say to me, do you love me? And Swami said, my life comes down to one thing. You are all that I have ever loved. Isn't that what we want to be able to do? Truth, light, Master, whatever you call it. All love emanates from that source. And if we would fulfill our destiny, where else would I go? I will cling to the light above all things. And that we can die on that. We can. And what joy is our lot to be able to do that.
Love is all I know, sun rays on the snow of a winter long, in darkness without song. Oh, my heart's afire, burning all desire, only you remain, and life again. Love is all I know, sun rays on the snow of a winter long, in darkness without song. Oh, my heart's afire, burning all desire, only you remain, and life again. Too long I did stray, flung lifetimes away, imagined you did not care. I know now your smile was mine all the while. I listened and love was there. I can't breathe for love, all the stars above call to me, come home. Life's waves all end in foam, only love can heal all the pain I feel. What a fool was I to turn away. Thank you. So let's all sing together. I'll sing a line and then you repeat it. Long I've called you my Lord, long I've called you my Lord, long I've called you, long I've called you. Many years I have longed, many years I have longed for your sight, for your sight. Bathed the darkness with tears of devotion, bathed the darkness with tears of devotion. offered candles in prayer to your light, offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend? How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? Must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? Will you come? Thank you.
All right, my friends. Oh, you know what, Dara? I do want to sing that song, the goodbye song.
Sure. Okay.
This is a song that we often sing when we're leaving people, and I wasn't sure we'd want to do it, but I do want to. This is just, we'll do the Hearts Unite one.
Hearts unite in joyful blessings. Though we part, our love will stay. May God's light expand within you. May we be one in that light someday. Hearts. I'm crying. It's hard. Hearts unite in joyful blessings. Though we part, our love will stay. May God's light expand within you. May we be one in that light someday. One more time. Hearts unite in joyful blessings. Though we part, our love will stay. May God's light expand within you. May we be one in that light someday. May we be one in that light someday.
Okay.
So I'd like to thank very much Asha Nayaswami for this beautiful teaching. Let's give her another very big hand. And I'd like to very much appreciate Dambara for the beautiful singing. Let's give him also a very big hand. And we take this opportunity to bid farewell to Asha Nayaswami, who is leaving the ashram tomorrow. And we will greatly appreciate her coming to the ashram and for sharing this very inspiring teaching. And we'd like to wish her great success in all of her practices and studies and service and teaching around the world. May she continue to inspire many people and share the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda and inspire many souls around the world. So we wish her all the very, very best. Let's give her another very big hand. And we wish also safe travels for Dambara and Atul, who are leaving tomorrow.